All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's been a while since I've done a data dive. Uh, those of you watching kind of the day I dropped this, earlier today, I dropped some video of this past week. I was at VIR and I had my CT5-V Blackwing out. Um, and, what I'm going to talk about today is frankly one of the more frustrating things, which is why was I actually slower? I had really high hopes going in. When I was at VIR last November with the car, that was my first time at that track. In fact, first time on track with that car. I managed a 205-17, which I thought was pretty good. I thought the car had a lot more. And there were some weird handling traits with the car. When I got home, I kind of realigned it, and I actually had the rear toe messed up. I'd actually made a mistake when I was setting up my string box, and my rears were towed out, which is not really what you want for good handling. So I'd gotten that all fixed, and I had everything checked over at TPC Racing. So really the car felt good. I was looking forward to at least breaking into the 204s. The reality is the best I got was a 206.5. So, I think we're going to go through why that is. I think a lot of it, quite honestly, is, if you've not seen much content on the channel, it's because I haven't been at the track much this year. Just had a lot of competing priorities, and frankly just haven't been able to get out there, and I also just didn't want to beat the Blackwing up by tracking it too much here. So let's go through. I think hopefully this will be helpful for anybody. I did look at data a little bit when I was at the track. Again, I had a lot of other things going on, so I didn't do really what would have been ideal, which is doing more debriefs on my own in between sessions. And this session we're going to look at here is actually my last session of the day, which was clear track, nobody else out there, last session of a 2-day event. So it was really nice, but again, didn't quite get the results I was hoping for. So just to orient ourselves, again, this is data straight out of the PDR system. We're looking at it in Pi Toolbox. This is, I believe, 12.3 is the version I'm running. I pay for like the Ultra license, but honestly, pretty much everything I do here you can do in the free Lite version. So if you go out to Cosworth and just download Lite, get a Lite key. I put some workbooks up on HypoDriver. Like, you can do this yourselves. Like, you don't need to go buy a bunch of expensive software for it. So this blue session up here under compare laps, this is my previous best from November, the 205.17. This is actually my last session, which turned out to be my best lap of the event, which is a 206.54. So 1.4 seconds, give or take, off my previous best. So, in pro racing terms, that's an eternity. In amateur track day terms, it's, unfortunately, you're going to see it just kind of is what it is, and there's a lot of things that I could have done better. So let's go ahead and dig right into it. So I'm going to kind of walk you through how I do this on my own anyways. So it's kind of going to be live, although I've looked at the data before. So first thing I've done is I've gone ahead and, I have a VIR map where I've configured it into different sectors. And I'm going to start by just looking at the sector time. So up here, this is again my fast lap, my 205.17. You can see kind of the sector times, and then down here you can see kind of the best sector times all the way across. And it gives you a theoretical fast lap and a fastest rolling lap. Fastest rolling lap was pretty close to the actual fastest lap here. So that's kind of my baseline. I was looking to best that. Down here is actually the reality of my fast lap. So this is just looking at one session, but you'll see everything in orange here were basically the fastest sector times. And so for most of that fast lap, I was actually turning the fastest sector times, which was great. There's one big anomaly right here. See, right here, where you can see I was nearly 4/10 off on that lap, my best time. And ironically, my best time through sector 1 was on my warm-up lap. So that's kind of interesting there. So here we have, actually this is my warm-up lap. This is the first lap after my warm-up lap. So if you compare the sector times, you can see sector 1, my bests were pretty close. Sector 2, we'll look at these on the map, about 2/10 off. Sector 3, about 2/10 off. Sector 4, 1/10.5. Sector 5, pretty big difference here. what is that, 4/10? Okay, so we'll focus in on sector 5 here in particular. 6 is close, and about 2/10 through 7. But we're going to look at them literally overlapped and side by side, and that's going to give you a much better view. I'll also say over here, you're looking, I've been playing with the metrics feature. This is one of the things in the paid for version of Toolbox. You have to write a little code behind it. But this is doing things like taking the actual corner and straight segments out of the track map, and I'm doing things like looking for the mean lateral G's, the actual average, speed. I'm sorry, that's actual total G sum, that's lateral G's. So I haven't done much with this. I'm kind of doing it, playing around to kind of figure out the value and see what I can do with that. That's interesting. So, all right, here's kind of the meat of it though. So we're going to bring up the compare sheet, which for me is kind of where I do most of my work. Let's see. Unfortunately, PyToolbox periodically has this issue where the media drops out. We're going to try to fix that real quick in real time. See if I can't take this out and add it back in. There we go. Okay, so now that's back. So again, blue is my reference lap, my November fast lap. The red is current. Down here, orienting yourselves to the channels. Let's actually do one more thing real quick. I'm going to change this color to something that's a little bit brighter, so it's a little easier to see. So there you go. Okay. So we're looking at channel-wise. This is accelerator. This is the brakes. This is your speed trace. And then down here, this line is the delta time. And then this one, I really like this one because this is the derivative of the delta time. So what this is telling you is when you're gaining lap time or when you're losing lap time relative to your reference lap. So if you look at this squiggly red line here, when it is below the blue line, my most recent session is going slower than my fast lap. When it is above, I'm actually gaining time. So you'll see, like going down the front straight, I'm losing time, a little bit of gain, losing. I gained a bunch of time right here going into turn 1, and then I lost it again. So for me, this is really kind of helpful to kind of zoom in on where my problem areas are. So let's go ahead and let's zoom in right here into kind of the run down the front straight into turn 1. So what are we seeing? First of all, I was carrying a lot more speed in that previous session. So I would need to go back to actually look at my launch off of hog pen kind of coming into the front straight to see how that was. More than likely that was the problem. It's possible it could just be the fact that it was warmer and the car was making less power, but I think the reality is it's more a function of I got off hog pen a little bit better that previous lap and that previous session. And so that, what is it, a couple miles an hour here, 2 miles an hour, 2.3. I was able to carry that all the way down the straight. You also see, you watch this. So here's a couple miles an hour. I start kind of losing confidence, kind of bleeding off the gas. Gosh, it's a big heavy car. I don't want to run off into the grass and hit something. So I kind of tentatively ease off the gas. And so I start, again, losing more time. There's a bigger time gap, or bigger speed gap rather, in here. And so as opposed to me being off the gas here, whoops, and braking here, let's click on something that's a little higher fidelity. Braking off the gas here and braking here significantly longer. And that fast lap was a much shorter distance from coming off the gas to getting on the brakes. So this whole, section here, we can kind of look and see how much time did I lose. Pi's got this neat feature. You can click someplace, hit R, click someplace else. We'll go right about here maybe. And now if you go over to delta time, it was only 0.03 of a second. It actually wasn't that big of a time change through there. Hit R again to get rid of that. So down through the brake zone, again, you can see just a little bit better job carrying speed through the brake zone. And then right here, I'm rolling more speed into the apex for turn one on my, turns out to be my slower lap. And the net effect of that is, if you watch the throttle pickup, again, I tried to get back to the gas early, had to bail out a little bit, had to go low, kind of, 80% throttle, 70% throttle, and couldn't really get back to full throttle until here. Whereas with this, my previous lap, I actually did the same thing. I actually got back to full throttle and had to bail out of it a little bit. But from a speed perspective, the bottom line is I picked up a little bit of time through here, but I gained it here, and then it was kind of a wash. So if we just look at this section and again figure out what was the overall time change, again, about 500ths I lost, so not a huge change there. So let's do this real quick. So this is the map view. So what I'm going to do is, again, I've got a weird bug where sometimes the imagery disappears. So let's just blow that up real quick. We're going to zoom in and see the difference in my lines. So what you're going to see is I'm not all the way to the left of the track coming in on my slower lap. I'm also bending in a little bit early, and I'm really wide of apex. So if you watch the video, you see this over and over again. And actually towards the end of that session, I tried really hard actually to fix that, but it was frankly, I couldn't stitch it together into a solid lap. But what you're seeing is I'm kind of pinching the corner, I'm running wide of apex in one, and then I'm fighting the car to get back around to be able to start accelerating towards turn two. And you're going to see in a second, this is probably the absolute biggest thing that messed me up all event, was this kind of messing up turn one. Whereas in my faster lap, I got down, you want to be down on really the outer curb here, kind of for the last 3 or 4 blocks, and bring it in closer so that you can kind of straighten the car out and get a better run towards turn three. So let's take a look at that. So again, this is braking for turn one. This is accelerating turn 1, 2. And so right here is probably one of the biggest chunks of time between the 2 days. And it's not a lot, okay? It's a 1/10 and a half. But what you're seeing is, again, from a speed perspective, I was carrying a lot more speed on that run up to 2, much longer. Oops, let me unclick that thing. And so that was worth some time. But again, kind of, I broke a little later. I broke actually a little longer on my reference lap, and I kind of ended up with the same speed basically through 3. So not a big difference there, a lot of little stuff. Okay, so going in, looking at the run from 3 to 4, I actually stayed on the throttle a little longer this time, which was good. And again, it's very small increases in lap time, but again, I overslowed for turn 4. I mean, look at the speed gap here. It is 8 miles an hour as I'm turning into turn 4. So it's worth looking at the line through that as well. But just to give you a sense of lap time difference, that was 2.5 tenths right there. So that was a pretty big difference. And you can see also I picked up the throttle earlier, which probably hurt me even more. So let's look at that track map one more time. Oops, we'll look at it right here. Zoom back in. Yeah, and sure enough, so just like with turn 1, some of this could be GPS error, by the way. It's possible that just GPS accuracy is off and I'm not actually that far offline. But you definitely can see I'm turning in earlier, and then I'm having to fight the car as the car is kind of wanting to wash out wide. And this hurts me not just through 4, but also through, I guess, what is that, 5A or is that 4B, through the next right-hander. So again, moving forward, here we are going through what I believe is 5A and B and 6. And you're not seeing big differences in lap time through here. You do see that I actually I pick up the throttle a little stronger earlier here, but I'm slower on speed. But by this point, we're both full throttle. Speed's pretty similar, less than a mile an hour difference, as we're making this run down to the climbing S's. So we get to here, and I actually was working really hard on staying in the gas longer. A lot of folks have commented, why aren't you flat through the S's? Why aren't you going faster than the S's? Why are you lifting so early? Frankly, especially in a big 4,100 pound car with me in it, I'm just not comfortable going into the S's much faster than low to mid 130s. The car will probably do it. I'm just not comfortable with it. So for me, I have found that I could stay in the gas longer and make that left and carry a little more speed through there, but then I actually feel like I need to brake a little, and I always overslow. So it's easier for me to just kind of bleed off the throttle here once I start to get uncomfortable, get the car oriented, and then try to give little bits of throttle through the S's. And in particular, when you're going over this kind of flat tabletop part, giving it a big shot of gas just to kind of help push it up the hill. So that's something that there's clearly lap time to be had, but it wasn't really my biggest problem on this outing. In fact, you can see kind of slightly different throttle applications. My reference lap, I got a little more gas earlier and then breathed off and then more gas, whereas here I just gave it a big shot and then just kind of coasted. And then here again on the run up to turn 10, again, another throttle application, kind of big throttle application. So this is where you see a big speed difference and you start to see a big time difference though. So if you look at this section, this is that run from 9 to 10. You've made that fast right-hander, coming up on turn 10, which is a scary, you're cresting the hill, left-hander, it's blind, or blind exit. And so, you want to get slowed down for that. I tend to overslow for this corner is one of my problems. But again, here you can see relative to previous outings, my speeds are really much lower. And that's a fairly consistent thing. So if we just look at the lap time lost, a little over a tenth. So not huge. Let's actually back up a little bit. We'll go from here to here. Okay, 1.5 still. So again, little bits. I think if it's one thing we're seeing is, for me, there was no overwhelming section of the track I was just getting wrong. It was a lot of little things that I kept messing up as I went around the track. So again, here's the run out of 10. So one of the things you will see that I did a much better job of on my reference lap was getting back to the throttle and really powering down the hill. It's really easy to just get lazy and just sort of coast your way down the hill or take your time getting back to throttle. There were some laps I even played with doing this in third gear. We're going to come back and actually look at that sector again. And in fact, let's go ahead and we're going to do that right now. So if we go back to splits, this one where I was very different than other ones was sector 6. So let's go find sector 6 and understand why that was different. So zoom out. Oops. There she says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is where I had the big difference, 4/10 difference. So it is that run from 10 down to 11. So let's go ahead and just change which lap we're looking at. Select region, region 1. And what was the difference? Well, you can see I was going much faster. And interestingly, I don't quite understand how this was faster for me. Speeds aren't any better. So that's 100 miles an hour. Something doesn't look right there. Oh, 100 versus 109. So I actually don't understand why that would have been faster. I'm going to have to go back and look at that again because 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong sector. That's why. 6. This is where the difference was. So this was, frankly, just a better run down the back straight. That was why it was. So if you look at, the overall, we'll look at this again with my fastest lap, but really the difference, that extra 4/10 was in how I got down the back straight. You can see I did a good job of waiting later to brake, waiting later to lift, and I got a pretty decent launch out of Oak Tree, which is another corner I was struggling with, and the net effect was that was significantly faster than my otherwise fastest lap. So let's go back to that lap we've been comparing, that fastest lap of the day for me. So we're going to go back to the region 2, and I just want you to look right over here at what changes with that red line when I do this. There you have it. See that? Much slower down the back straight, and that was worth about 4/10 right there. So remember, that was a biggie for me. And so now we're going to zoom in. Kind of looked at 10 to 11. Again, relative to my fastest lap, I just didn't power down the hill as well. That again cost me a lot of time. So 3.5 just on that run from 10 to 11. So that's pretty significant. And then let's look at going through Oak Tree. All right, so this is another corner where I feel like I struggled all weekend, and I feel like I should know how to do this corner by this point. But you can look at my throttle application, right? It's up, then it's down, then it's up, then it's down, then it's up, then it's down again, then it's up again. As opposed to my faster lap, it was a very progressive application. It was very smooth. I was at full throttle a little bit sooner. And what you see is, whereas the min speed was very similar, that extra throttle, being able to put the power down, really made a difference over the life of that back straight. So let's look at the corners. Again, let's zoom in here. This is Oak Tree. All right, what do we see? So first off, on my faster lap, I'm out further and I'm taking a wider arc through 11 and into Oak Tree, and I'm getting the car oriented. If you can see, it's getting more oriented down the track sooner, and I'm not having to run as far out to the left. There's definitely some GPS error here. Like I'm pretty sure if we look at the video, you're going to see in both cases I'm over by this curb. But again, just look at the angle of the car and the direction it's traveling. I'm still fighting the direction change of the car through here, which is why I'm having trouble getting the throttle back. So if we go back and look, again, this was a huge chunk of time lost relative to my previous lap. So let's go here to here. Okay, 4.5. Okay, so again, big chunk of that 1.4 seconds came on that back straight and came from a fairly small thing, which was how I got out of Oak Tree and how I got back to the throttle. So this is something really I need to work on, and just frankly smoothing it and stop trying to wrestle the car through Oak Tree and just being able to get turned back to power and accelerating down the back straight. You'll also see I did lift a little earlier. Not a huge deal, but didn't help. And here we are braking for, what is that, 14, right-hander at the end of the back straight. So a little bit of time just in the braking zone, just kind of rolling a little more speed a little later through the braking zone, getting down to 14. I actually am rolling more speed in, which is good, but am I able to put the power down? And the answer is yet again, no. A little bit of power, breathing off, a little bit of power, breathing off, a little bit of power. So I'd have been far better off, frankly, just waiting to get back to power, or maybe rolling a little bit less speed, getting the car pointed and being able to get, more throttle in through the run at the top of the roller coaster there. So through here, no major differences. We'll see that that run into Hog Pen, I actually carried a little more speed through here. But again, what do we see? It takes me longer to get back to full throttle in the front straight. So by the time I get down here on my faster lap, I'm already starting to add throttle and I'm able to consistently feed it in. Whereas on my lap from this last time, it was much longer and I was still feeding throttle in. So that result was, again, you see a huge speed difference. What's that, 2.5 miles an hour, kind of as I'm coming onto the front straight. And while this kind of evens out as I add more throttle, that's the type of thing that can hurt you all the way down the front straight and cost, several tenths at a minimum. So, so looking through this, kind of what do I net out for myself? One is obviously Oak Tree. So I got to work on getting the car turned as I'm coming into Oak Tree, waiting to get back to throttle until I can really get, start feeding it all the way to full throttle, and yeah, basically being able to carry more speed down the back straight. Other areas where accelerating down to 10, kind of skip past this, but being able to put more power down, going down to 10. I did try it in third gear. I'll have to actually go look at those sessions a little more closely to see whether that helped, but typically when I try to downshift to third, I end up over-slowing coming into the turn, so it doesn't buy me anything. And also through one, same problem as kind of Oak Tree, right? So getting the car down to the apex, getting it oriented in the towards turn 2 so I can really add more power on the run from 1 to 2. So those are probably the big things I'd work on if I was still at the track. Obviously I'm not, so I'll have to wait till the next time I can get the Blackwing out there to work on these things. But I just want to point out that I don't think the problem was the track wasn't grippy or the heat. It was significantly warmer. I don't know if the heat really affected the power the car made. It was really me as a driver. So hope this helps you understand how I look through this stuff. Hope this helps you kind of do the same types of things when you go to the track. If you have any questions, shout them out. And everybody have a great day. Happy 4th of July.